I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free, and I won't forget the men who died.
In this community, it's been an incredible honor for our family to be able to raise our family here. You know, I speak all the time. When I started this journey in 2007 as your council member, I had 3 kids under the age of 4. If I serve my final term as your mayor, we'll be empty nesters. So really, Frisco has been part of my family's DNA. It's been part of my family's pride, being part of this community. When I stood in front of you 6 years ago, I told you to trust me the role of mayor because I'd served you honorably as 9 years as your council member, learning the systems of Frisco, learning the people of Frisco, listening to you door to door about what we need to do as a community. I made a promise that if you elected me, that I would continue to build Frisco into the world-class city that we were destined to be. We set a plan. These things don't happen by accident. So we set a plan focusing on, of course, the number one factor, public safety. How can we make Frisco the number one safest city in America, which we've done. We talked about building incredible communities, world-class developments, bringing to life our parks, giving you the world-class facilities that you asked us for, such as a best-in-class public library, opening a new senior center, designing the world's greatest parks. Frisco is building itself into becoming a world-class city, the envy of the nation. And it's because we have an incredible team that is firing on all cylinders right now, not just your elected officials, but the boards and commissions that many of you in this room serve. It's the residents here that ask us and tell us each and every day that I moved to Frisco because I want to live in the number one city in the United States, the best place to live. That's why I'm here today, to serve you one final time in continuing that tradition of the pride and winning tradition of the city of Frisco being the number one place in America to live. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon. I'm often asked when I'm running, what are the differences between myself and my opponent? The why is easy. There needs to be change in leadership in the city of Frisco. One of my priorities is to provide transparency in leadership. Recent events have illustrated that our governance is often translucent and at times opaque. Early assurances made in the Universal project were changed just in time for the vote, eroding confidence and trust in our city leadership. Universal needs to be successful, and as mayor, I will work to reestablish the trust between our residents and the Universal project. My opponent has lost focus that our residents are at the top of the city's organizational chart. They should be treated with the utmost respect when speaking on upcoming projects and areas that impact our daily lives and their families. I want economic vitality with responsible development so great jobs and projects come to Frisco with our residents as stakeholders and not just afterthoughts. I'm for eliminating monies that are being contributed to the mayor and council members by individuals and organizations to only have those same groups bring business before our council. Campaign finance reform and establishing an ethics committee are certainly needed. More police officers and firefighters are needed right now to protect our city. It is time to ensure adequate staffing based on national standards. We need to support House Bill 471 to ensure injured firefighters and police officers get the benefits and job protection that they need. Reinvestment in infrastructure, roads, and city assets is essential. I often hear Frisco as a story of East versus West Side, with many East Side residents feeling disenfranchised. Our regional partnerships are not where they should be. I will ensure we have solid relationships with local, state, and federal partners. My opponent talks about winning. I'm not sure many Frisco residents, especially the ones at Cobb Hill, the Citizens Bond Committee, residents advocating for a pet shelter, and those dealing with density and traffic feel much like winners today. However, there's good news on the horizon. This time our residents have a choice. They can continue with Frisco business as usual, or they can decide to go a new way, a way that values and respects their dreams and goals and recognize who's at the top.
What do you believe is the top issue in Frisco and why? The city of Frisco, we've been the fastest growing city in the country for, well, quite a while now. Going on 10 years, we're used to managing that growth, but what we continue to hear from our residents certainly is how we can keep up with the growing needs of that. Infrastructure, traffic is always at the top of everyone's list. It's something we very much have changed our strategy on as a city. So those that have been in Frisco for a long time and have been part of many of the projects that have come here, all the way from Stonebriar Mall to Toyota Stadium to the Star, hearing of the Universal Project, PGA Frisco, which now opens a month from now. Frisco has long planned for these projects, and there's a plan in place, a well-executed plan in place. But we knew the northern part of our city was going to develop really quickly because of these incredible assets that have bought into the Frisco vision, the Frisco dream, like PGA Frisco. And so what we did is we invested $200 million in roads that are under construction right now. You have a bond committee in front of you that's going to bring more investment to the area. That's going to really ease the traffic burden, in our community. So continuing to keep up with that is our top issue. Mark?
As we meet with residents all over the city, they continually ask a couple of things. One is transparency. I mentioned it in my opening statements. There has not been much transparency lately in the governance of this city. Universal is just one example of promises made, promises not kept. Information that was initially released on Universal changed the very night of the vote in 3 significant ways. That erodes confidence in government, which we cannot have. Universal's coming to Frisco, and as mayor, I will make that successful. But I'm going to have to work with the residents and Universal's team to mend those relationships because right now they're fractured. We're going to mend those up, though. Secondly, it's good to say we're the fastest growing city. That's great. Some people don't want to be the fastest growing city. Some people want to grow, but you don't necessarily have to be the fastest. As someone that ran the fire department for almost 10 years, I can tell you how daunting it is to keep up with emergency service levels to a city that's growing 1,000 people a month. So I think that the population growth, the density, the traffic, and the challenges we're going to face is the density is going up. It's going vertical. Response times that you'll see now for police and fire are times to go to your front door to house, not when you're on the 25th floor of a high-rise. So those are challenges that we're going to have to face, and we'll face them, but it's going to take real leadership to do it.
Yeah, I think it's a misperception by many people that government somehow controls our growth patterns. So the land here in Frisco is owned by private individuals. They have the rights to develop their land at the rate and timing that they choose to do so. So the city of Frisco cannot tell a property owner that you cannot develop your land. So the growth is coming through our community. It's built out through Plano, and the wave of growth is coming through Frisco right now. We'll move through Frisco, go to Prosper and Salina after that. And so we can make a choice. We can let the growth run us over and take advantage of us as a city, or we can be prepared for it, plan for it, do it well. That is exactly what we've done. So when I was here 6 years ago, I spoke about controlling that density. Before I was elected mayor, Frisco was planned to be well over 400,000 people. And I told you then that I was going to come up with a plan to slow the growth, to slow our density, and get our plan back to the original 325 to 340,000 people, which we've already done. That's already been accomplished here in just 6 short years. So how did we do it? So we put in phasing into place where on our mission developments, they actually have to deliver parks and open space and other great projects before they could build apartments. Before they build, what was happening often was the apartments were being built first, and we waited for the other exciting retail, which never ended up coming. That can't happen now in Frisco. We put in an open space ordinance, which I'm very proud of. That was one of my personal passion projects, that every commercial development in the city from 2017 until the city is built out will require 10% parks in it. You're seeing that come into fruition right now. We put in max density caps. So before, there was no density caps on any development. We put in 55 units per acre, and it could only be in certain select parts of our city. We put in park fee ordinances, which actually made it cost prohibitive for developers to not be able to deliver the parks for us, brought them to the table to start negotiating down their multi-family counts. All these strategies have brought down the future density of our city. So I would say that we as a council have been very deliberate of bringing the right type of development at the right time. That's why we're getting the best development partners in the entire world focused on Frisco. People like Craig Hall, Ross Perot and Hillwood, Jerry Jones and Starwood, Hunt Realty, the best of the best are putting their money in our city. It's because we demand quality, we demand excellence, and they absolutely know that we're going to protect their development because we're going to have the same set of expectations for the people that come right behind them. That's how we're building Frisco into the world-class city that it is, and that's what I'm going to continue to do as your mayor.
I certainly agree with property rights in Frisco, the state of Texas. Universal Project was an SUP. It was a special use permit that this council had total control over. They didn't have to approve it. They didn't have to let a theme park come in across from a residential neighborhood. We all know that in Frisco, that when you got open land out beside you, it's going to be something. I don't think that anyone ever thought a theme park would be that something. So I think what my opponent is saying is true, but it's not true in terms of what this council could have controlled that. It did not have to allow that special use permit. And they certainly did not have to relinquish three main points of Universal: the age of the rise, the height of the rise, and the opening and closing hours of that park were all changed the night of the vote. And then to make it worse, they brought the representative up from Universal in a political theater, is what I saw, and asked him to commit to promises on things that should have been codified in that SUP, not go out on camera in some type of political theater that they were going to hold someone accountable. Put it in the document. If you want to hold them accountable, put them in the document. He may not even, you may hear 3 years from now, Universal say, he's not authorized to make that deal. It's not in writing. Those things are not any good unless they're on paper. And I would say what my opponent just named, some of the world-class builders that are coming here, does anyone think that they need property tax reduction to bring their projects in here? Because that's what they're getting. I get EDC money, I think that's fine, but when they get property tax rebates from people that don't need the money, that's where a lot of our money is going in the city budget, is to rebate taxes to people that don't need it, and that needs to stop.
Well, the citizens of Frisco 30 years ago had a public election to form our Economic Development Corporation and Community Development Corporation. The citizens of Frisco made the choice that this is how we were going to build our community. And the city managers and every other elected official have fulfilled that promise that the residents made us make to them. That's how Frisco's been built. That's the golden goose of Frisco. My opponent wants to kill the golden goose that has made Frisco everything that it is. Our incentives are performance-based incentives. They're bringing value to the community. Our Economic Development Corporation 5 years ago did a study, and their investments brought a 4-to-1 economic impact for every dollar that was invested. I don't know who does your financial planning, but if someone did my financial planning and gave me a 4-to-1 economic impact, I would take that all day long. Regarding Universal, so it would have been illegal for the city of Frisco to enter into a contract between the two parties. The contract for the wall being built outside of the Cobb Hill neighborhood is not a contract with the city of Frisco, and we cannot interfere with private property rights such as that. That is not a function that the city of Frisco can do. But what we can do is we can get them on the stage to make an oral commitment that we can hold them accountable to, where they will sign that contract. I've told the Cobb Hill residents that if they do not perform on their promise to do that, then I will advocate as their mayor for the city to fund that wall. But I fully expect, and they will, deliver on that promise. That is between two private parties. Regarding the negotiation of the deal points of Universal, since this seems to be my opponent's main issue in this race, those were worked in collaboration with the neighbors and the residents of Frisco. So I personally spent 12 hours sitting in front porches and backyards of Cobb Hill residents, as did other council members. And their concerns were great ones. Many of them were answered, but they actually helped to improve the project and share those concerns that they had. So that was very much a collaboration with the cities to lead to better outcomes, not just for the surrounding neighborhood, but for the whole area. As far as the kind of the three minor points that he's referring to, one is the hours of operation, which allows them to open earlier on certain days during defined times. And one was the ride height, which our team worked specifically with theme park rides to determine how do we codify this so that it's delivered what is promised. What is promised is that it's a small park dedicated to families that are 3 to 7 years old. And so you do that by maximum rider height, and that's how it is defined. So the project will be delivered as promised. It will be something we keep a very close eye on, but it's going to be an incredible asset for this community. You know, when you look at these types of projects, you know, we have to listen to the public, which we did. We have to hear the concerns. But at the end of the day, we have to make decisions on behalf of the city. And had councils before been timid, we wouldn't have Stoneborough Mall, we wouldn't have the Star, we wouldn't have Riders Park, we wouldn't have Toyota Stadium. The reason we have Toyota Stadium is a nearby city actually got cold feet and they lost the opportunity. We wouldn't have PGA Frisco. These projects take bold leadership. We have to go to all four corners to listen to the residents. And it's not just the ones that stand up and be the loudest. It's the ones that are afraid to talk at public meetings, they want you to come to your homes. That's what we did. We did a town hall. There were 300 people that showed up, and I remember the reporter saying afterwards, I came here expecting pitchforks. I walked the entire room and couldn't find anyone that was in disagreement with it. So part of the project was you had to go listen to every single audience, not just social media, not just the ones showing up at council meetings, but in people's homes, in town halls, in comfortable spaces, to get a full picture of the community reaction to the project.
Honestly, I don't even know where to start. Revisionist history probably is the first area. If you consider the age of the children, the hours of operation and the height of rides that were switched, it went from 3 to 9 years old to 3 to 11. They said the park would close at 6, then they said 9, and they can stay up until 10 on special seasonal nights. And that 50-foot ride went to 80 feet with a 100-feet building that could be built, which is 10 stories tall. Now, if you tell people what something's going to be, and we can go back to my opponent's Facebook, and we can publish what he originally said about Universal. It's easy to see the conflict. People don't believe anything that's being said. It was a bait and switch. They were told one thing, they did something else. That is not good government. If you're going to do that the night of the vote, you should have tabled it. That wasn't going to happen. They pushed it through. They knew they were going to push it through. I met the residents at my home from Cobb Hill on a Saturday afternoon before the Tuesday vote. They told me specifically that they had already told my council members the vote was done. If anyone doesn't think those 4 votes were already in, you probably weren't watching this very closely. The comments of those people didn't matter. That project was coming here, regardless of what any one of those votes, in my opinion, said. And that's exactly what happened. That was probably going to be a case study of what not to do in zoning for every public administration class, probably in the United States.
So you can spend the whole night in Universal. I guess these are technical points. So the reason the age was changed from 3 to 9 to to 3 to 11 was a technical question because there were some 11-year-olds that are 48 inches tall. There aren't many, but there are some. And so that was a technical reason why the official age was changed. What was put out on my Facebook page certainly was the exact, did a copy and paste what was sent to us, but then as we got through the discussions, we started looking at different ride types. If they wanted to do a Ferris wheel, we didn't care. So the ride height, it was defined more by velocity, was the more effective tool to define what types of rides were going to be there. What age ranges was more important than the specific ride height that controlled the different experience for the different ages. So there was no bait and switch. There was no done deal. Council could have changed their mind at the very end. I mean, I can tell you, if they wouldn't have solved the wall issue with Cobb Hill, it wouldn't have passed. It wouldn't have passed. And so it was a negotiation to the very end. But at the end of the day, council has to make a decision. This was, I would say, the longest case we've ever had. The most meetings, the most discussions, by far, without question, of any case that we've ever had. We had the most preparation leading up to it, spending 4 months of diligent research, kind of getting this to where it was. Our other deals, PGA Frisco, the Star, those were voted on the night they were announced. This project, we knew we had to handle different. And the reason was it took council a good 4 months to really understand the project and really start believing the vision that this was going to be an amazing thing for our community. But it was also to overcome the objections. All the questions that the public was asking were the same questions that your council was asking. And quite frankly, the first night we heard about the potential of universal coming, council was pretty unanimous that this does not sound like a great idea. Because you have to get past the headline. You have to understand what the project is. You have to understand what the project isn't. Then we started jumping into the traffic concerns. How is that going to be solved? Yes, we learned that this was actually going to be much less traffic generated than what would otherwise be done there. It would be on off-peak times. It would be a reverse commute. Quite frankly, I didn't want the park closing at 6 p.m. because that would put traffic at rush hour. It was better for it to stay open a little bit later for the grand mission of the park. So all of these questions were well thought out. It was a collaboration with the city, and the conversations are going to continue. We're meeting people on the campaign each and every day that have different perceptions of what it is, and as we continue to have this project, then they see the vision. Now I get why the city supports this project and how meaningful it's going to be. It's going to be a major economic engine for this community, generating $3.5 billion of economic impact over the next 20 years. That's going to rival Stonebriar Mall. Stonebriar Mall is what put Frisco on the map and became our economic engine. We opened PGA Frisco here in a month. That's going to be $2.5 billion of economic impact over the next 20 years. Universal will add $3.5 billion of economic impact. What that means is, long after this current mayor and council are forgotten 20 years from now, the work that's been done here the last couple of years will guarantee that this city is thriving, that it hasn't aged out, and that things have not passed us by. Future generations of leaders are going to benefit to be able to make decisions just like the leaders of today are benefiting from our leaders 20 years ago who got Stonebriar Mall here in Frisco.
Number one, I don't know that last 10 or 15 minutes makes anyone Cobb Hill feel any better on the explanation. But I would say this, I was a little bit more concerned of my opponent's support of this project early on. If you go back to January 17th and you look at citizen input, there were 3 citizens that came up to the meeting that night. During citizen input, the mayor and council are not allowed to respond to citizens. The reason being it's not an agenda item. And information that's shared by the council or the mayor has to be available to the public. I've heard our mayor say many times when people came to the podium, we're very sorry, but the council is unable to respond to you. That night, 3 people on January 17th spoke against Universal Studios. And each time my opponent commented 3 to 4 minutes on each one and used well, I really need to get your facts straight, so let me help you do that. That should have never happened. But like many things, there's no oversight over this council. There's no ethics commission overseeing them. There's no one to say, sorry, Mayor, you're out of order. You can't speak during citizen input. They have no one. The only people that are going to stop this kind of behavior are you on April 24th and May the 6th. That's the only people that's going to stop this. There is no one else to do it. There's no one on the council. There's no controlling legal authority that says you're out of order. Just as the mayor or my opponent mentioned the PGA, it's interesting he should mention that. The December 18th meeting, when the council voted on the PGA, my opponent had to recuse himself because of a relationship that he had with one of the principal members. If you look at the code of conduct, and I have it here on section 3.11, it talks about conflict of interest, and when you have to recuse yourself, you cannot make any statements. In fact, for the record, they don't even count you as present. He proceeded to take a, quote, mayor's privilege, which does not exist, and speak for the project for 5 minutes after he recused himself for the project. That is totally unheard of and a violation of 3.11 and the city code of ethics. Did anyone file a complaint? Did any controlling legal authority on the council stop that? I don't know because I've never saw it. And there is no one else. And no one is going to. These things are out of order and they're inappropriate for someone to speak on that project who had to recuse themselves. If you're openly doing that in public, if you don't mind in public on video speaking about that, what else is happening? I'm not saying that there is, I'm just saying what else? If you're willing to recuse yourself but speak in open and public in a violation of our city's code of ethics, I think that's shameful. And it certainly was out of order, but there's no one to call for that. No one. That's why this city needs an ethics commission, and they need it now, so they have oversight over our elected officials. And for those that don't support that, I would argue why. Why would you not?
So per the city charter, the mayor runs the council meetings. And in citizen input, we can respond with factual information. We cannot have deliberations. And so that is very much a function of citizen input. Regarding the PGA vote, technically at the time of the vote, I no longer had a conflict where I needed to recuse myself. I chose to recuse myself just because I had been through that part of the process. My broker at the time, Robert Elliott, when I started to recuse myself, he was actually doing the project. And he decided that, or council decided that really he wasn't the right partner for the project, that we needed a bigger partner for the project. And that's when Omni came in to start doing the project. And the ownership interest changed, and it actually removed the conflict I had. I chose to continue to recuse myself at the very end, just because I don't even want the perception of a conflict. As you know, in politics, people accuse of many, many things. And so as a CPA, we certainly have a code that's to be independent in both appearance and fact. And so that is the purpose for my continued recusal. I follow the code of conduct. I take the code of conduct very seriously here at the city of Frisco. And so that's why I make sure not to involve any of my personal business in things. And so as a real estate broker, I've never represented the city of Frisco in a transaction. I've never represented a party that did business with the city of Frisco. I've never had an interest in any project in the city of Frisco. I've never owned land in the city of Frisco, other than my personal residence and the rental property that I have. Many brokers take their clients through zoning cases. It's a pretty much a fundamental role that we provide as brokers. I've had that request from many potential clients saying, we would love to hire you. Can you help us get through the Frisco zoning process? I've declined every single one of those opportunities. Those would have been very lucrative opportunities for our firm. Even though there's nothing that restricts me from doing that, I would just have to recuse myself from that vote, should it happen. But I didn't want the appearance of bringing someone through a zoning case, so I've just chosen to never do it. The code of conduct is very simple. You know, my opponent will have to deal with this. I mean, his wife is a realtor for a brokerage that is owned by Jerry Jones. And so he'll have to get with our city attorney to determine how that will impact his ability to make future votes in this community. Jerry Jones is our biggest private partner. So that is something that he'll have to work through. I'm sure he'll do that he will do the right things and learn what things he needs to recuse himself from. That's what I do here with my personal business as well. I'm very transparent in everything that I do. I'm proud of that and have for the 15 years that I've served this community.
It's all record that he spoke for 5 minutes after he recused himself. I need to understand how that is not a breach of 3.11. I still haven't heard that. And if you look at the video, my opponent says, well, the city attorney advises that it's a conflict. I think it's a loose association, but nevertheless, I'm recusing myself. But mayor's point of privilege, I'm going to speak. Folks, you can spin this any way you want. That's a violation of 3.11. I will tell you this, regardless of my wife's business and who owns what brokerage firm, if I recuse myself, you can rest assured one thing, I won't speak about that item with anybody. I won't speak about it with an executive session. I won't speak about it with other council members, and I certainly won't stand up in front of the council and the public and speak and violate that recusal.
If you think there's a violation, there's a process for you to file a complaint, Mr. Piland.
No, sir. You told me that you didn't violate it. I need to know how you did not. You told this group here that you didn't. That's the question I have for you. How did you not violate that code of conduct after you spoke, after you recused yourself? That's the question I'm asking you. I don't need to ask the ethics board. I'm asking you.
I have the right to speak on a project and give my opinion and share the excitement for bringing a great project here to our community. I know that it's your mission to insult everyone who does business with the city of Frisco and disparage the great partners that
I want to hear the candidates, so I know you have your partisan opinions, and I appreciate that, but let them speak and let them give their point of view, please.
Yeah, because I'm for campaign finance reform, our team, myself, is being painted anti-development. I'm not. I'm pro-development. As the fire chief, I sat on every major development in this city for 10 years. I met with every developer or their staff for all of the projects that you just heard him spoke of. I've sat at the table with all these principals, from the STAR to the PGA to the Omni to Greg Hall's project, all of them. So our goal is to be proactively engaged in the builders to make sure that they're following the codes that they are supposed to follow, but at the same time help them get where they need to be. Every night, there's 230,000 people that go to sleep in the city of Frisco. They're counting that someone is watching their back. They're counting that the hotel they're staying in, the restaurant they're eating in, that someone is making sure that they're safe. And that was our job to do that. And we'll continue to do that. I am pro-development, but I am for getting the money out of this development process or any process when you bring business before the city. The city of Plano already has done that, and it's under the Plano Code of Ethics. It says the automatic recusal is designed to eliminate conflicts of interest and avoid pay-for-play politics in the city. The Council Code of Ethics didn't arise from a complaint about any current member, but from a desire to set a higher standard for themselves and future councils. A council member in Plano Bayo said human nature warrants citizens should rely on the righteousness of any city council member, but good systems should be installed that will hold elected officials accountable. That's an article in the Texas Scorecard in 2020. That's what we're after. We're after a group that says if you want to take the money, you can. You can take any amount of money that you want. But when those groups come before you at the council with their business, you must recuse yourself, which includes not speaking about their project. That's not anti-development. We're pro-development. That's getting the money out of these types of events. It's not about being against the developer. And I think it's the right thing to do. Plano saw it before us. Great for them, but Frisco needs to follow suit.
So Plano's ordinance was put in place, I think, 2 years ago after all the development was done, or largely done. And I did speak to one of their elected officials about their policy. I was curious about it. They said it's not even enforceable, there's no teeth to it, that it was put in place because a political ideology in their community was having a tough time getting traction for the candidates that they wanted to support. And so rather than having people vested in the community, the people most vested in the community, being able to have a voice in who governs and who leads their city and who carries the vision forward, they're now looking at a situation where PACs and super PACs and other special interests, would potentially be the ones that lead to the outcomes in their elections. I don't think anyone wants that. I don't think any community wants that. And speaking to some of the elected officials there in Plano, they're already seeing the fallacy in the policy and are looking to roll that policy back. So everyone who has served this community for 20 years has accepted donations from the local developers here in our community. Every single one, every mayor, every council member have done that. None of their decisions have been influenced because someone wrote them a campaign check. So what a lot of people don't realize is campaign donations, they can't be used for personal use, they can't be used for those types of things. They're used for election expenses, campaign expenses, for candidate holder expenses. And if you don't use all your contributions, the only thing that you can do with them at the end of your term is donate them to charity or give them to another candidate. They're not for personal use. Running a positive and vision-based campaign is very expensive. It's very expensive to run the type of campaign that our team is running. It's not expensive to run a negative campaign and smear campaign.
Okay, that was question number one. So seriously, we did touch on a lot of my questions, and it was good. I could have stopped them and asked particular questions, but I think we talked about ethics, we talked about universal, we talked about the density of some part. I'm going to ask a little more direct questions right now. Some of it alludes to what we just heard. So, Mark, on your website on March 24th, you said, quote, "I would be your mayor, not just the mayor of people who do business in Frisco." How would you enact campaign financing in Frisco?
Well, I think we just explained it. We would limit the amount of donations that you could take if you still wanted to vote on the business of that person or organization brought before council. It's very simple. If you want to take the donation, you can. People give donations to candidates all the time, correct? But to make it equitable and to make it above board, you just take all of the innuendos out of it by saying, you know, give $100,000 and you come within 2 years of capability on your project. That's how we get the money out of the campaigns. There's too much money in these campaigns. There's too many big dollars going in here. You have to ask yourself why. What is the money coming in for? Why does somebody write $5,000, $10,000, $15,000? Ask yourself the question. I mean, that's something that you can answer. As to smear campaign, no one is running that. I signed a pledge when I put my application in that we would not run a negative program, and we haven't. Look at I think the big thing is people just need to read the content that's being posted. No one accused anyone of doing anything. What we ask is the fact that you take a look at what's going on. I do think that it serves to take a look from an ethics standpoint about when council members are in business in the city of Frisco, and that business is getting substantial breaks on the personal property tax. That's just governance. That's all it is. It's not an accusation. It's not saying someone's doing something wrong. It's just good governance when that happens. That's what conflict of interest is. It's what looking above board is. It's the examination of what you're doing to make sure it passes the test, that everything is okay. And that's what it means. It is very simple. No one has smeared anybody. I read the post that my opponent put in at least halfway through. I stopped reading at some point. It was good to find out some of the things that I was doing because I didn't know. They kind of viewed me in on some of the things I guess I was up to and some of the things I said. I take offense. I think there was a comment about saying something about his family. I didn't know his family. I would never say that. Never said a bad thing about him. I disagreed with his policies. I can do that, but I've never said anything about him. I think people post that on Facebook, and I won't. But policies and things of code of conduct are fair game. Those are fair statements to make. But to say that I would say something about his family was hurtful. There was a post, I believe, yesterday that I said something about Pastor Ernest Morgan. This is out of control. I texted Pastor Morgan several days ago as he lost his entire childhood home in Amos, Louisiana, where his mother was living. I texted him and offered any help and assistance because he's my friend. There are many supporters of my opponent out there that are my friends today. And they'll still be my friends when this is over with. I don't draw friendship lines along politic lines. I don't do that. Because there's many people that are sitting right here that I've known for 10 years. I'm not going to not be their friends anymore because they're voting for him. Nor would I say anything bad about Ernest Morgan or anyone else. But that's the dark side of this business. That's the Facebook, that's the social media, that's the people that write things on keyboards. They know nothing about what they're talking about. And that's why good people don't go into politics, I can tell you right now, because why would you subject yourself to that? So when people do this, I have a big respect for council and for people that run in these political events because you really put yourself out there. But I would never say anything detrimental, especially about someone's family.
Well, I do very much agree with that last point, is that in the political climate it's getting very challenging for a lot of people to raise their hand and want to run for public office, especially with the things that happen online and social media. My business has never received a tax break. I don't know what that comment was referencing, so we don't apply for tax breaks with the Cheney Group here at our business. You know, I would say as far as the original question, I think was campaign reform. Is that where we're starting with that? You know, as Mark mentioned, you know, running for office is a tough job. Campaigns are expensive. I have $100,000 of personal campaign debt for my 15 years of public service to the community. I'm not independently wealthy where $100,000 of campaign debt is insignificant to my family. It's a choice my family made, eyes wide open, that we were going to give this because we believe in this community, we love this community, it's meaningful to our family, and I'm going to fight to keep Frisco going exactly where we're going. We have the opportunity we are doing something really incredible here. And if you ask questions why developers would want to give money to a political candidate's campaign, if a developer here in Frisco is investing $1 billion in the community over a 20-year period with visions, they've made a commitment to the city of Frisco that says, I'm going to put $1 billion into your city. And then they hear a potential mayor candidate that says, I want to take the city in the exact opposite direction. The promise that was made to you when you made this commitment to our community is not going to be the promise made to you after I'm elected. That would probably really scare somebody that wants to invest a lot of money in this community. It would make them think otherwise. Maybe this is not the community I want to be in. We saw some of this happening in some surrounding communities where we were very glad to see the political environments changing in some of our biggest competing cities. And the first thing we did is call those developers and said, you know what? Frisco would love to have you. And they came, and they're building here, and they're investing here, and they're doing amazing projects. So that's why you would see probably a lot of developers in this community are pretty scared about the rhetoric and comments they're hearing in this mayor cycle, because the outcome of this election, quite frankly, will change the entire direction of the city of Frisco. It will end the 30-year promise to the residents that voted on the Economic Development Corporation 30 years ago and set the vision for what this community was going to become. It would tarnish the legacy of George Purefoy, who was a city manager for 35 years, who built this city into what it was. He made us promise that we would continue the legacy. And honestly, that, in my opinion, is one of the biggest objections, one of my biggest reasons why, is the leaders that came before me, they could sleep easy at night knowing that the city was left and was continued to be run and their legacy was fulfilled because Frisco continued its trajectory. I saw Mayor Simpson here earlier today, and at the 20-year celebration of the Frisco Rough Riders, right before I came here, we were talking about everything that's happened since, and the legacy from Mayor Mosso, and it was continued forth. And I hope to one day turn this over to the next mayor who says, I want to continue the trajectory of mayors here in Frisco who took and built upon the foundation that was given to me and continue to push things further and higher. And that tradition is why Frisco has become the envy of the nation, the top city in America. And I'm going to make sure it continues as long as I'm your mayor.
Well, I can't speak for George, not all. For George for almost 10 years, I don't know what his position would be. I kind of think I do. Well, not going to articulate that here. It wouldn't be fair to him. He needs to speak for himself. But I will tell you this. When people vote, my policies and my positions are clear. If people vote me in for mayor, it's not based on some promise that was made 30 years ago. Elections are done every 3 years here in Frisco. We don't go back and say, well, you know, these are things we can't do because 30 years ago we made some promise. I don't even know what that promise is. This is a destination city. Universal bought 97 acres of land without having any zoning at all as far as the SUP. That was not zoned for special use. They certainly couldn't have put that theme park there had they not got the SUP, but they bought land anyway. That's their choice. They can make that business decision on their own. If campaign finance and getting money out of Frisco is juxtaposed to a developer, then take your business elsewhere. We don't want that here. You do not want the influence of that money here. And that's not just developers, that's anyone. You can't have that. You can't. What you're saying is that no, I want my money to influence decision-making, so therefore I don't like that position. It's an easy position. You can have the money. If the developer wants you to have the money, they can give you the money. It's not a problem. You just can't vote on their project in 2-year increments. If they're against that, what does that say? I mean, let's be real here, folks. What does that say if they say, no, I want to give you the money, but I want you to vote on my project? What does that say? I think we all know what it says. It's not difficult. They can come and give any money that they want. You just can't vote on their project. It's that simple. So developer friendly, that's great. For people that don't want that, they disagree, that's fine. That's your opinion. It's not mine. And it's not Plano's that is next door. Whether they're going to reveal and bring that back and missteps and what I haven't heard, all that. They had a vote recently. They wanted to move it to 4 years restriction, and they didn't vote that in. They kept it at 2. I'm trying to keep the integrity in what we're doing. That's what this is. And for people that disagree, that's fine. That's your opinion. I don't fault you for it. We can agree to disagree. But I think that when you take a look at that and you're for money, that's why they did it. Pay for play. It's right in the news article. It's right here. And that's what we want to make sure does not happen. We're not saying it has ever happened. We're saying we want to ensure that it doesn't. And this is the best way to do it.
That wasn't me. Thank you. I did. Thanks a lot. Director's Biden.
With all due respect, I don't want to beat this dead horse anymore, and I would rather move on to some vision questions that will actually impact the lives of the people listening to this debate.
That brings us to the vision question. We'll start with you, Mayor Cheney. What is your vision for Frisco over the next 3 years?
We've got a lot to do here in Frisco. Obviously, we've been known as Sports City USA. We're opening our latest and greatest, our biggest sports asset here in a month at PGA Frisco. That's going to transform the northern part of our city. But we're starting to become more than just a sports town. With help like leaders like Tammy Miner-Shagan and others, we're really starting to develop the rich cultural identity of the city, really leaning into arts here in Frisco, leaning into our cultural diversity, really becoming a unique community. I think that's going to be a big focus here over the next 3 years. We just got our live music designation. Here the first week of May will be the country music capital of the world when we host the ACMAs here in Frisco. Another huge win for our city, but it won't be the last. We're going to be a live music destination. We're going to be an arts destination. We're going to figure out the Performing Arts Center. That's going to be a major focus over the next years. The downtown rail district, I'm really excited about that. That's our version of the 20-year overnight success story, where private businesses down there really started investing, and this is where Frisco can start leaning in. We're making a major commitment. That was one of the things I ran on 6 years ago. It was my commitment to the rail district, and we're about to invest $50 million into the rail district. There's another $20 million along for a parking garage down there to really make it a walkable destination with a plaza, a gathering place, and it's going to really light that area on fire. We're intentional as a city as far as how we develop. We don't want every development to be the same. The Star and Stonebriar has its own feel. The rail district is going to have its own eclectic kind of vibe to it. And then the northern part of our city is just getting started. Because of PGA Frisco, there's been over $10 billion of announced commercial development that just wants to grab on to the halo effect that that's creating. And those are just now starting to come to life. My background, certainly gets me unique skills at the right time at our community. Just having an understanding for urban planning and design and real estate. Almost every project, whether it's a neighborhood or commercial development that I've had the pleasure of working on here in my tenure, won Development of the Year. It's something that I keep a close eye on. PGA Frisco is the latest Development of the Year here. There's a lot of pride into getting into the design and getting it right. We're becoming much more diverse as a community every single day. That's where we leaned in heavy, that we wanted to be a city that celebrates and advocates for the rich cultural identity that makes up the fabric of Frisco. That's something that has set our city apart, and that every resident, because there's only a few native Frisconians, there's not many. And so everyone that lives here is from somewhere else. And it was my commitment as your mayor 6 years ago, we delivered on that promise and that dream, that once you decide to call Frisco home, once you become a Frisconian, that when you get here, you are welcomed, you feel safe, and you feel like you belong. And we're doing that and have done that, and we'll continue to work through that. Grand Park, you know, I always talk about that, the urban legend of Grand Park. We're starting with humble beginnings, but this Tuesday, we're going to be discussing a contract with our consultant to start phase 1 design of Grand Park, the project that motivated me to run first for city council in 2007, is I want to work on Grand Park. And in 2023, we're starting that work to deliver that promise. I share the vision with Bill Woodard, just having a passion for parks and trails throughout our community. The northern part of our city was planned like the entire part of our city should have been planned, where the trail networks were planned and designed first. We've got hundreds of miles of interconnected trails with below-grade crossings where you can get to any part of the city, any development. We're investing $300 million in parks in our community just over the next few years, because parks is the #1 contributing factor to quality of life in any community. And that is one of my personal passion projects. UNT Frisco, an amazing project, Tier 1 research institution. It's almost impossible, people say, to get a university in your city, because you have to be able to find land. They need it for free. You have to deal with the political spectrum. I had my first meeting with UNT Frisco in 2017, and in 5 years, we found land that worked from the city's budget and their budget. We negotiated a deal with them. We helped them design a curriculum with our business partners. We designed a campus. They built their first campus, and they opened their doors to 4,000 students just a couple months ago. We're already having conversations for the next phase of that iteration, and how that's going to continue to build the economic development here in our community. I told you in 2017 that we had to rebuild our Economic Development Corporation, which we've done. We got new leadership, we changed strategy, we took a totally different approach, we got UNT, the partner that we needed, and because of that hard work, we landed our first Fortune 500 company in Keurig Dr. Pepper. We landed our first Fortune 100 company in TIAA. Last year, we had our most successful year ever as an economic development team, bringing 16 corporate headquarter relocations to our community. And we're just getting started with that development. That's high quality jobs for all of you and your families to be able to have here right in our community. And their work is going to continue.
My vision, as we mentioned earlier, is that we have transparent leadership in this city. That we value our residents. When they come and speak before council, we give them the respect that they deserve. And they have the input that they deserve. We want economic vitality. We want to bring projects here. We want to bring about 25–30% left of this city to be built. Most of it's tied up in one big landmass for the most part, but it's there to be developed. The city is also going to go through redevelopment, just like some parts of Plano are going right now. It never ends. You hear people say, well, here's build out. Build out doesn't end. As soon as build out happens, you're taking things and you're redeveloping, and then it could be residential, could be something like retail, but redevelopment begins. We're going to be in this process for many, many years. But we have to ensure economic vitality for the city. I haven't heard a lot about public safety. I can tell you that public safety in this city is not getting the attention that it needs. What I hear from our leadership is, well, 50% of our M&O goes to public safety, and it does, but I've heard that for 10 years. Our staffing in the fire department does not meet national standards. Just to give you an example, in the mid and high rises that are being built in Frisco, according to the National Fire Protection Association, for high rise, you need 43 firefighters. Right now, our response is 25. 25 firefighters on the first alarm when it's needed 43. That's NFPA 1710, you can look that up. 17 for a house fire, they base that on a 2,000 square foot home. Now, I don't know many homes in Frisco that are 2,000 square feet. They're almost double that size. One of the biggest things that I saw when I was fire chief here was the size of the homes, structures, and how difficult those firefights are with the limited number of people that we have. We need this staffing for the fire department, we need it now. There are over 500 special events in this city every year. Now that can range from a football game to 28 firefighter paramedics at a Toyo Stadium for a concert. It's varied, but there's over 500 a year, which have to be covered by off-duty firefighter paramedics and police officers. The police reach out to other agencies. The fire department has about 20, 25 firefighter paramedics that they get as well to try to cover these events. 1710 says you need more person staffing on engines and ladders. We don't have it. Our next door neighbor has that. We don't. We're a minimum of 3 on everything but 1 unit in this city. Our staffing is below the levels that is needed. NFPA 1710 also says that the total initial alarm must be at your house within 8 minutes. We have response times in all parts of our city. In Lebanon Road, they're over 9 minutes, some of them 7, 9 minutes to get the first engine there. This has not been looked at critically by our staff, and it needs to be something that the council really, in my opinion, needs to get in front of. The manager runs the city day to day, but the council is responsible for the manager. These things need to be looked at. I was fire chief here for almost 10 years. I never gave any report in front of the city council other than COVID when we were going through the COVID pandemic. I was never asked to come up. I was never asked to give the state of the fire department, not once. Council needs to get more involved in what's going on with public safety. It's disappointing that it's not even in their top 10 priorities. It's not there. You can say all day long that, well, we know it's number 1, so we don't put it on the list. It's a focus area, but it's not in their top 10 priorities. If the city manager is evaluated annually on the top 10 priorities, how can 50% of our M&O not even come into play during his evaluation? Police officers are short as well. I've talked to them, we're meeting with them again. They need officers. They continually need officers. So public safety is something that we really need to focus on. 471, HB 471 provides protection for police and firefighters if they're injured on or off the job. We have city policy on workers' comp and injury on the job, but after 12 months, unless you get a month or 2 of ADA, you're separated from employment. Yes, you're separated from employment if you have been, unless the city manager decides otherwise. And we were able to get that in on a group that I worked with about a year or 2 ago. That we please put that language in there that the city manager could intervene, and they can. But the 471 doesn't leave it up to other people's opinion. It's in black and white on what coverage police and firefighters get. It's not enough to continue to say we get 50% of our M&O to public safety. There are other factors there that the men and women of these public safety departments deserve, and we need to provide that for them. We need to reinvest in other parts of the city. There's parts of the city that need reinvestment. There's parks that need updating. There's roads and infrastructure, and lastly, relationships.
All right, before you continue, I just want the mayor to respond to the fire.
Okay, sure.
We'll let you continue right after, I promise.
Okay, sure.
Frisco is a city manager form of government. which means the only person that we hire as a council is our city manager and city attorney. And it is our city manager's job to hire our police chief, our fire chief, and make sure that they're meeting our expectations for each of those departments. The top 10 list that Mr. Piland referred to is not our top 10 priorities. So council has, for many years, always put public safety as our number one priority. It's the top of the list. And so we, in our first forum, Mr. Piland said he was unaware of any strategic plans of any department other than the fire department. The city did not have any strategic plans. We have a strategic plan for every single department in the city of Frisco. We have a comprehensive plan. We have 7 strategic focus areas, which when he was fire chief, he was responsible to live up to as part of his responsibilities as a fire chief. So we do have these plans in place. City council is very much aware of what's happening in our police and fire departments. You know, the police department, Chief Shilson, I think is the best police chief in the entire country. He is doing amazing work. He is hiring the best of the best people. We gave him tools to find people across the country who are escaping departments where their communities didn't support them, enable them to hire them here in our city at a level where they didn't have to give up their seniority. And so that's really led to a lot of this mobility here. You know, from the fire department's perspective, I do want to first defend Chief Glover. So Chief Glover has done an amazing job as our interim fire chief. We're in the process of hiring a new fire chief. He has already rebuilt morale in the department. He is starting to regain trust throughout the department. And he is changing the operational operations, because he did that as an assistant fire chief for 12 years. And him overlooking that role again is really bringing it back into compliance, staffing to different levels. Now, you know, Chief Glover and George Purefoy and Wes Pearson certainly had different philosophies than Mark Piland, and that was something that was evident during his tenure as our fire chief. The standards that he refers to are not, they're standards that are usually written with the support of unions across the country, and they're not specific to any community. So the one data point he pulled out from all the list of response times, the one where we don't do the similar level that is in their standard is because they're writing those standards for cities like Boston, where they may have 100-year-old buildings that don't have sprinklers, don't have the technologies that we have. High-rises in Frisco have different technologies that require different responses because of sprinklers, building materials, all those different types of codes. In 20 years of high-rises in Frisco, we've had 6 high-rise structure fires, and 4 of them were at the embassy. 6 in 20 years. We do deliver the appropriate response. Every shift to man the equipment that we need to man to the standards that we expect requires 62 firefighters on every shift. Frisco schedules 75 firefighters for every shift. We have what we need in this community. How do you build response times? How do you make the community safer? Is not just throwing people at it, but it's building stations. That is something I've always been committed to as a council member and a mayor. We're about to start fire station number 9, or 2 to 10, and then we'll follow that up with 11. We've got a plan to hire 55 more firefighters to man those 2 new stations over the next 5 years. Our police department literally just had a banquet on Friday, said it was the most police officers we've ever hired in 1 year in the city of Frisco's history. 19 new police officers here in our community. With all due respect, Mr. Piland, the city of Frisco is the safest city in the country for a reason, and we will continue to be.
I was able to explain the National Fire Protection Association to me. After 43 years being in the fire service, I certainly learned a lot there in those 5 minutes. The NFPA is more than the union members. They're manufacturers, they're users. I sat on the NFPA committee for 7 years, the 191 committee on self-contained breathing apparatus. We had one union member that represented the IFF on the committee. The notion that these are union committees that are pushing staffing is just a misnomer. It's not true. Like I said, I sit on the committee. I know how they're made up. The NFPA is a consensus standard. It's not required, but it is a legal benchmark that is used in many cases throughout the country. And it's something to be obtained. So to think this is a union issue, it's not. It's a staffing issue. The people that are staffing Frisco every day are at minimum staffing. There are 3 people on every apparatus except for 1. There are 3. Our next door neighbor has 4 on every apparatus. They use that as a recruiting tool. We had recruitment and retention on the last top 10 council priorities. And that city uses that all the time to recruit. They say, listen, our minimum staffing is 4 on all of our heavies. Frisco is 3. That makes a big difference. I can't speak to my opponent, but I ran an engine for 20 years. I know the difference between 3 people and 4 people on a fire apparatus. It makes a huge difference, a big difference. These standards do take in consideration sprinkled buildings. That's another misnomer. Well, you don't need these people because our buildings are sprinkled. I've been on some of these high-rise fires since I've been here. A sprinkler fire, sprinklers are not designed to totally extinguish fires. They're designed for you to escape. There's tons of work that has to be done on a sprinkler fire. Equipment has to be brought up. Ventilation has to happen. Fire extinguishment has to happen. Fire control has to happen. I could be lectured a lot about things tonight. Fire is not one of them. So to hear some of the things I'm hearing is a little concerning. We need the people in the fire department. It was interesting that on that 117 meeting, I'll wrap up, Steve, with this, that when my opponent spoke 3 times about Universal, the president of the Firefighters Association was also at that meeting and came up and spoke about staffing that was needed in the department. Oddly enough, there was no comment from anyone on the council after he spoke. It seems like the #1 priority there was Universal, not public safety.
Staffing is a management issue. It's our city manager's responsibility and our fire chief's responsibility. I was a council member for all the years that Mr. Piland was the fire chief, and this is the first time I've ever heard these recommendations from him.
Well, I think he makes the point. Fire chief didn't work for you. Fire chief didn't report to you as a council member. The layered staff was city management. Information was transmitted to city management about the needs of the fire department. It doesn't go to the council member. In fact, it'd be inappropriate to go to the council member. What's not inappropriate is advocating your responsibility to lead and manage the city manager. That is the mayor and council's job. That is in the charter. Yes, they hire him, but they also oversee the activities and they evaluate him every year. If you don't know what someone's doing, how can you evaluate them? I just asked the question. You've got to take a deeper dive in what these folks are doing in terms of staffing in public safety and across the city, not just public safety, but the other departments that are there as well. So to say, well, it's his job, not mine, it is. It is his job to run the day-to-day operations, but it is the council and mayor's job to oversee the duties of the city manager.
Yeah, the mayor council takes great pride in overseeing the day-to-day operations of the city of Frisco and the vision set by our city manager and evaluating them on all those different aspects. We have hundreds of meetings every single year where we're taking deep dives into every part of the city. We are looking at all these things, and every department head, not just the fire chief, has their opportunity every single month at a council meeting to address the council and share any concerns that they have, any things that they need. We go into work sessions where we ask very pointed questions, and was asked of Mr. Piland many, many times. Are we giving you every single resource you need to deliver on our expectations that the city of Frisco is the safest place in America? And his answer was always yes, defiantly yes. And it's not just the people, it's the equipment, it's the fire stations, it's giving them the training, it's the fire safety training center we've invested in. Innovation in fire goes all the way back to Matt Bogart when he was fire chief, and he brought the city of Frisco the SAFER program, both safety town, was doing really innovative things here in the community, and still continues to work for the city of Frisco here today. So we do evaluate the city manager, we look at all these details, and we hear directly from our department heads, which Mr. Piland had 10 years to convey that message to the city council, and he never did. Regarding the workers' comp that the city council worked through, I actually went back and watched the video of that night when city council passed it, and it was it's codifying, what the city already did, how we could protect our employees and take care of our employees. That's something that's always been important to the city of Frisco, but we wanted it in writing so it survived. Mr. Piland didn't even comment during that. One of the biggest pieces of legislation that affected the employees that he represented and he led. Council asked the question, how does our fire chief respond to this? And the city manager gave a response on his behalf. And Mr. Piland was sitting in the audience and did not even address the mic and speak and advocate on the employees that he led on why he thought this was a great thing for the city of Frisco. Your council did. Your council's mission is to make sure everyone that works for the city of Frisco is taken care of. We celebrate every single month important milestones, people that have worked here 10, 15, 20, 25 years, because they know when they come to the city of Frisco, they've got great opportunity for growth, they're going to be taken care of, they're going to be part of a family, and they're not accepting a job when they come here. They're coming here because they see themselves having a lifelong career in an organization that's going to love them, care for them, take care of their families, in a community that loves them and cares for them. And it's the people that they want to serve. That's the type of people that come and work for the city of Frisco.
It's hard to sit here and think that my opponent has been in city government for 15 years and doesn't have any clue about how things work. Fire chiefs don't go up to the podium and say, I need more staffing because we're short-staffed. That's not the way that works. It is a council manager form of government, but it's a manager director form of government as well. You could probably make that statement, and that may be your last time you get to speak publicly. You don't go in front of the city council as a department head and advocate for staffing. That is controlled by city management. You deal with management, management makes those decisions. As far as the workers' comp policy, let me clear that up a little bit for you because your details are a little sketchy. First of all, that workers' comp policy was brought up by the Director of Human Resources along with 2 or 3 other policies that I had never seen, and neither had the police chief. When the question was, had other city employees looked at this, the response was from the HR director, no, we don't normally do that. That's not how this works. They were able to table that until the next time. I'm not going to talk out of school about conversations that the city manager and I have had over the years, because I'm just not going to do that. But I will share this with you. That night, Mr. Guerford apologized and said, "I'm sorry if you guys did not see that. You should have." And then we got together to a group, myself and Chief Shilson, along with HR and some other leaders, to develop what there is there today. So this misnomer that I just didn't get up and walk to the podium and start speaking is a complete misunderstanding about how governance works. And that's why we have people that run businesses, but not many people that know how governance works in the city. That is governmental malpractice, what I just heard at best. And this represents protocol in city government, and it's shameful.
Do I just find, Mayor? Free?
We can move on.
I just want to give everybody the opportunity to respond. We're going to start winding it down. It's been an hour and 20 minutes. We've discussed a lot of topics in detail. Just going to ask this last question, and then they can give closing remarks. So I'll start with Mark. What attributes make you the better candidate? In other words, why should Friscoites vote for you?
Well, as I said earlier, I've had 43 years in local government, 20 years of that executive level leadership. I worked for a large city, one that was almost 500,000 people with 5,000 employees, and a county government that was over 500,000 people. And I have experience at the state, local, and federal level leading federal USAR teams on disasters for 16 years, all over the United States and even internationally. You don't have those years of experience without going through a lot. The modern fire chief today, especially in Frisco, has a budget of $52 million and almost 300 employees. You have to be versed in a multitude of things, not just firefighting. In fact, most fire chiefs, firefighting is probably one of the least things that they may be involved in. But there's human resources, there's hiring, there's policy development, there's coaching, there's leading. The job's about leadership. The job is not about some experience that others may have. It's about leading a city. It's about having leadership experience and being able to parlay that into the job of the mayor. Leadership builds collaboration. We need relationships in this city. We need a mayor that's going to go to a regional transportation committee and not send other people and sit there with the other mayors that are in the city. There's also a mayor group, the Metroplex mayors, that needs attention. It needs a mayor sitting there with the other mayors in the Metroplex. We need to build the relationships with our county leaders. That right now is not in great shape at all, along with our state reps. These relationships are vital to have good relationships with the county and state government. One thing that's not well known is the mayor in this city is the emergency manager. The fire chief's the coordinator. The mayor's the emergency manager. When that train derailed in East Palestine, that was the mayor. The mayor gets that call, not anyone else. When the train derails somewhere else, when the tornado hit Louisiana, when the tornado just hit south in, I believe, Alabama, the mayor gets those calls. That's the emergency manager. I have 43 years experience and years working in emergency management, especially with the Federal Emergency Management Agency. So you have to ask yourself a question, is who you want to pick that phone call up at 2 a.m. The train is derailed, or a tornado or hurricane has hit Frisco. We have been extremely lucky. We've had tornadoes come north and south of this town. We won't stay lucky forever. Heaven forbid it ever does, but we need to be prepared for that. We do have other resources. It's not just the mayor, it's not just the emergency manager, there's other resources, but you're the lead when it comes to the disasters that happen in this city. I have a lot of experience in running those disasters. So again, ultimately it's about leadership, it's about relationships. All these things we talked about tonight are differences. Most of them can be solved with good relationships and good leadership. John Maxwell is a favorite author of mine. John Maxwell says everything rises and falls with leadership. That's what this job is about. But experienced leadership is really critical. And this right now, this city needs it. This city needs reform. It needs ethic reform. It needs finance reform. It needs to build the relationships that are not where they need to be. And that's what I would bring to Frisco.
Well, I think my most valuable experience to be the leader of this community is actually being the leader of this community for the last 6 years. You know, I do think one of my greatest skills, and other mayors have had this, is that mayors that have been elected in the city are not people that have had careers in bureaucratic government. City of Frisco elects entrepreneurs. City of Frisco elects visionaries. It elects risk takers, people that don't want to do the things the same way. That is what Frisco is all about. Myself, leaders before me, and hopefully leaders after me. Regarding the emergency management, I got that call, and I answered that call. So I served during COVID as the emergency manager for 6 months, maybe longer. That means the decisions fall on me. I had to make every public health decision for this community, and if I got one of those decisions wrong, all of you had one person to blame, and that was me. I led this community with a steady hand through probably the most difficult year in the community's history, not just through that role, but then going through social unrest, and we led it better than any other community, in my opinion, in the entire country. So yes, I have experience being your emergency manager, but as far as, skills, Steve, that I would say, someone asked me this question. They said, what is your superpower on the campaign trail? And, I had to sit there and think about it for a few minutes, and then my answer finally came to me. And so my superpower is building extraordinary teams. And I can take a collection of extraordinary people and make them believe that they can do more than they ever thought they were capable of. I've done it with my business. I've done it with this city. I've done it with any project I've ever worked on in my entire career. And that is what is happening here in the city of Frisco. We have amazing, extraordinary people that work here, that serve the community. And I think each of them would tell me that, Jeff, I never thought I could achieve what you made me think and believe I could achieve. And that is my greatest gift, and what we'll continue to do here in the city of Frisco. We have built a foundation here. We've had extraordinary successes, but what my last term is really going to be about is testing the absolute limits of what a city is capable of. And the city of Frisco will stretch the boundaries of what is possible here over the next 3 years.
Okay, we're going to have some closing remarks, so you can comment to the mayor. I can see you're ready to go.
Yeah.
So 2 minutes, please.
I certainly won't diminish the role that my opponent, the mayor, played during COVID. But to indicate that he led that charge, that he put himself out there. There were a lot of people that were involved in the COVID response for the 2 years here in the city of Frisco. Myself and Dr. Gamber needs to get a lot of credit here. were instrumental in getting this city through COVID. My graduate degree, and Dr. Hammer deserves that applause, he really does. He was a superstar when it came to COVID. I would mention that the mayor actually gave me the 2020 Mayor's Award for the response to COVID to me individually. But I'm concerned that he may take it back and say he wants it back. I'm not sure. So I'm reluctant to say that. It was a team effort, no question. It was a collaborative effort by a lot of people. One of the proudest moments as fire chief is knowing that during the throes of COVID, that our firefighters, and we were transporting a lot of sick individuals. They were very sick. And not one of them ever came to me and said, "Chief, we're scared. We've got kids, we've got wives and husbands. We're scared." They're in a small compartmentalized medic unit. And they answered the call every single time. So let's give credit where credit is due. That was a collaborative effort. For my opponent to take that kind of credit is troubling, to be quite honest with you, because it takes a team. Not any one person gets through that and makes that success. And we had a lot of success here in Frisco with handling the call and getting people back to work.
So just real quick before I give the microphone back to Mayor Cheney, where can people find more information about you? Just give your website or whatever. Or
Our Facebook page is Mark Piland for Frisco Mayor. You can go there and then all of our information is there.
Well, I do agree with my opponent on the last point, that Dr. Gamber was amazing. We're lucky as a community to have him. The entire city council for leading through that with courage during that difficult year. And yes, in 2020, it was a very challenging year for all of our first responders, both our police, our fire. And so we as a council at the end of the year thought it was very appropriate to recognize the work of all of our first responders in 2020. It's the only year I've given 2 Mayor's Awards, where we awarded both our police and our fire chief that privilege, just to show all the people that leaned in the most challenging public safety year in our history, that we appreciate all the work that they did for our community.
where can people find more information about you?
MayorCheney.com.
We want to thank the mayor for coming tonight and this challenger, Mark Piland. We appreciate you staying longer than we anticipated. I hope you found this enlightening. I hope you found out some more information about your candidate or your opponent. And I just want to thank you for attending the Star Patriots debate. If you do follow Star Patriots, we do have an exciting guest coming April 22nd, actually 2 guests. We have Lauren Boebert, the Congresswoman from Colorado, and Mark Meadows will be here in Frisco April 22nd. Please go to our website if you want to find more information. Thank you very much. Have a great night. God bless.
I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today.